Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fenske. Paige Alyssa Hegwood was frequently cited as a St. Louis musician to watch. As Paige Alyssa, the singer and songwriter drew praise for their debut LP, Paige Alyssa, 2 years ago. The RFT wrote, "Alyssa is clearly on a path to lead St. Louis pop music into the future." And then the talented singer, songwriter, and producer moved to Los Angeles, our loss. But after parting ways with their management team, Paige Alyssa is back in St. Louis, just a little bit older and a lot wiser. And today they're releasing a new single. It's titled "What's the Move?" Let's listen.
Let's be for real, tell me what it's gonna be. Do I have to make a choice between him or me? Now come on and tell me, what's the move? Tell me something. You know I want you, so what's the move? Will you let me know before I fall for you? Check it. I don't mean.
And that's What's the Move by Paige Alyssa. And here to discuss this new track and their personal journey is the artist Paige Alyssa. So Paige, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Paige, I know a few years back you left St. Louis for LA. Why?
Well, it was a number of reasons. I really wanted to go and just see what else is out there. Like, I have been in St. Louis like my whole life, born and raised, and I wanted to see what I could do out there as a musician, and just, I don't know, do something a little bit different. And I will say, this was 2 years ago, and I was a lot younger, very headstrong, and my ego played a role in it too, and I just wanted to go out there and had these expectations of doing different stuff with my music, and so I did that. I learned a lot, and I still have quite a few friends and acquaintances out there, so I plan on being back out there at some point, of course. But I'm very happy that I came back home and to get some healing and get in the right headspace and everything too.
What made you decide, you know what, I think I need to go back to St. Louis?
Oh my goodness, it was a long process. When I went out there, I had really specific expectations for myself, and through me being out there for a year and a half or 2 years or whatever, I basically had to go through this process of getting back to my core and figuring out what I wanted as a musician and as a person and what I valued. And so as I was out there going through that journey and learning and growing, it made me realize what I did want and what I did not want, or how I wanted to go about reaching really specific goals I have with my music. And when it got to a point where I was making decisions based off of success, quote unquote, how we describe success and what it's supposed to look like in the world, and not based off of myself as a musician or my character, that's when I started making the adjustment. I think it's time for me to go back home and get back into my normal headspace to get down to the root of why I do what I do, and not having it be based so much in success or other material things that don't have anything to do with my music.
And do you see this move back home as sort of being a temporary stop to sort of gather yourself back together, or is St. Louis is going to be it?
I mean, you never know. I honestly, my goal obviously is to be able to travel and continue to do music and work with other people, not only in the U.S. but around the world someday. So you never know. Right now, I'm home, and I'm really excited to be here and to be able to just work with my musical family and collaborate with some of my favorite people in the city. So I'm taking it, a day at a time, and just not gonna, put expectations on stuff, and just kind of live my life and see what happens from there.
And you're still young. I mean, how old are you at this point?
I just turned 27 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
so.
you are very young.
Right.
Now, your new song, as you say, you are back to doing music, and you're doing some collaborations. Your new song is What's the Move? And this song, just from listening to it, doesn't seem to be about a move to LA or a move back home. What's the impetus for this track?
Yeah, so there's a few different approaches to the song. I actually wrote it 2 years ago when my record Who is Paige Alyssa came out, and it was a hidden track on that record because I wrote it in a week. and it just came to me, and I told my sound engineer, I was like, hey, I have one more song for this record. Let's go ahead and put it on. And the premise of it is basically about a really complicated relationship. The bare bones of it is just like, what are we doing? Like, 1 minute we're real cool, but you're giving me mixed signals. So, like, that was the bare bones of it, at least when I wrote it 2 years ago, about a complicated relationship. So, like, what's the move? What are we doing? But now that time has passed and, like, I've done a little bit of reworking on the track, it's more so of, like, a reintroduction of myself to my own music, and also a reintroduction of my music back to my fan base, and being able to collaborate with folks and approach this release a little bit differently than I have in the past. So those are the two different points that I see it as far as like the song goes.
Now, you have another track that we want to play here today, and this one is called Girl Crazy, and this kind of feels like the feel-good song we need right now. What's the origin story for this one?
So Girl Crazy, I wrote this one also, I think, in 2018. It was on Who Was Paige Alyssa, and it also was the first song that ever made it onto a Spotify editorial playlist, so that was really cool. And basically, it was kind of an ode to, like, all of my beautiful friends, you know, and it's just like, you know, sometimes you just go through these periods where you have crushes on a lot of people. And you're just like, oh my goodness, like, and you just, you know, you kind of go girl crazy. So it was kind of an ode to, like, all the beautiful people that were around me at that time. And for folks who maybe have, like, non-traditional, quote unquote, non-traditional relationships. So it's an ode to them.
So this track definitely put a smile on my face when we were listening to it. I want to play that for everybody now. Let's listen to Girl Crazy.
I think I'm going girl crazy. All these honeys got me going crazy. Oh, y'all can be my baby. I sit and think about you and you and you and you and you. Oh my God, all y'all have my heart. Can we have some fun? Lay up when we're done.
And that's Girl Crazy by Paige Alyssa. Now, Paige, this song seems really directed very explicitly at a female love interest, or maybe multiple love interests. I'm wondering if you were ever tempted to keep it vague and, you know, not be honest about who you're attracted to.
Oh, yeah. Like, my first record way back in the day, not way back in the day, but, like, in 2014, I came out with, what was my first album called? The Wait Is Over. There we go. And, like, at that point, I was out to, like, my close, like, family and friends, but, like, I was still playing drums in the church at that point when that record came out, and I wasn't publicly out about my sexuality. So that whole album, I was kind of really vague about the love interest that I would talk about in my music, because I was afraid of being treated differently by, like, the church. But a few months later, you know, I decided that I didn't have to live my life in the closet, and that people deserve to hear who I really am, and, like, I deserve to treat my art with, like, a level of authenticity that I wasn't able to do in the past. So I eventually, like, you know, came out publicly, and, like, ever since then, like, I've had this level of comfort with being honest in my music, because if I'm honest, and hopefully I can encourage other people to be honest about who they are, and hopefully they can hear themselves and relate to the music that I write.
Now, did coming out end up changing your relationship to your church?
Yeah, it changed. It's changed a great deal. So, like, I mean, I grew up in church. Like, my mom has been playing piano and organ for over 40 years. I got started singing in church, got started playing drums in church. Like, my introduction to music is all through the Baptist church. And, like, I wouldn't be the producer I am or the musician I am without gospel music. But it got to a point, you know, I think it was shortly after the Marriage Equality Act got passed, that, you know, the type of rhetoric that I was hearing in the church where I was playing at was, like, really inflammatory. And I just couldn't keep going to church every Sunday and be told that, like, I am a bad person, or people like me are bad, and that we don't deserve to live, and that we are not made in God's image, despite the Bible telling us that we're all made in his image. And it just got to a point where I had to take a step back from, like, organized religion. And I do miss my, like, church community. I do miss growing up, because, like, or I do miss attending church, especially being Baptist, because, like, it's such a lively place. But sometimes for folks like me and folks who identify like me, like, it can be a place that's not safe for us, and a place where, we aren't seen as like equal as everybody else. So it definitely has had an impact on my relationship with the church for sure.
Yeah. And so you have pointed to the church as being one of your major musical influences. And, you've now kind of, as you say, stepped away from that. I understand one of your other influences is that you studied jazz in college. What led you to choose that?
Well, so jazz and blues is the bedrock of all American popular music, or just American music in general. Even gospel music has its roots in that. So when I went to Webster, I knew that I wanted to focus in my studies on contemporary styles of music. And I got there. I met my voice teacher, Debbie Lennon, who I love to pieces. And she basically, helped me navigate my voice and learn how to study jazz and be able to apply it to contemporary music. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made for my music career.
Now, in one of their write-ups about you being an up-and-coming star, the Riverfront Times wrote that your songs, quote, swirl with enough synths and drum machines to make anyone nostalgic for the days when MTV still showed videos and dance floors were rife with neon clothing. Are you also sort of nostalgic for that era, which you obviously are not old enough to remember having partied within, but...
Yeah, no, I love 80s pop. I love New Jack Swing, which was my last record. Again, who was Paige Alyssa I based that album off of those styles of music. It was kind of like a love letter to all those older styles of music. And I don't know, I just connected with it at a very young age. Because, again, I grew up in church. My mom was a minister of music. A lot of the music I was listening to was just gospel music, day in and day out. But every now and then, a little Prince would get slipped in there, or a little bit of Janet Jackson would get slipped in there, or Wham! I would randomly hear that somewhere. And so, suddenly those influences, I just started picking them up as I got older. And it's just, there's a lot of connection between those older styles of music and jazz, because I'm a really big fan of unique chord progressions and harmonic progressions and really fun and bright melodies. And I feel like both those styles of music, older synth pop, New Jack Swing, and jazz, they kind of have all those things in common. So I think it's really cool how I'm able to tie all that in with all the other things that I'm influenced by to create my sound.
Yeah, it's all sort of mixed up, and you're putting it in the blender and turning it into something that's brand new. It's exciting to see. So if people are interested in getting your music or knowing more about what you're up to, where would you direct them?
Yeah, so you can follow me on social media. My Instagram is going to be Miss Paige Alyssa. That's MSPAIGEAOISSA. I will post short clips of things that I'm working on there all the time. Of course, you can look up Paige Alyssa on any streaming platform, Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, all those places. You can find my music there. And check out my website, paigealyssamusic.com.
All right. Well, Paige Alyssa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
And we're just going to go out with a little clip of your track Vibe. So just one more piece of music from Paige Alyssa.
No one else seems to matter. Just right here with me. You can be anything you wanna be. Come on, vibe with me. We can kick it till the break of dawn.
Tomorrow on St. Louis on the Air, we'll check in how St. Louis kids are doing during the coronavirus pandemic. We'll also explore how colleges are dealing with all this chaos. And we'll talk about a new true crime documentary looking at the death of Elsa Lemp. Podcast episodes of St. Louis on the Air are available wherever you get your podcasts. St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU. Thank you for listening. I'm Sarah Fenske.
Would you mind if we take the time to just vibe?
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.